Well, thanks, Greg, so much for being on the podcast today. It's such a pleasure having you here and seeing you virtually again.
Thanks for having me.
So, I wanted to start off with your background and having us telling us a little bit about on what led you to this focus on helping leaders tell their stories.
Yeah, so I originally started a company, I co-founded a company called Carvertise, and it was putting ads on cars, essentially. And so we had the idea of, for community colleges, getting students to wrap their cars for the colleges they attended, and it worked really well. We grew the company from zero, starting out, to $19 million. It's a big company, and I got to know all the wonderful community college marketers and presidents out there, and I really enjoyed that. A big part of growing the company was also how I used my personal LinkedIn account. Like, I would just add all the people I met at conferences, and then I would kind of post, started with like once a week, just like personal observations of growing the company. Um, And then I noticed it had all these good touch points with, people I saw at the conferences, and then I started to get more new business from it. And then as the company grew, I started to use it more as a recruitment tool for other people and then to build culture. And I thought, wow, I mean, like, LinkedIn is just so helpful. But why don't more people do it? And more people don't do it because, one, they don't have time. Like, everyone's busy. Two, they uh they don't have a strategy for LinkedIn. Like, I don't like I'll repost what the company's doing. There's a there's a Venn diagram that I like to use as a comparison. Is There's a circle of the company brand, and when you're just posting about the company, you sound very corporate and you don't sound very authentic. And then there's a personal brand where if you get too personal, it's kind of like not appropriate for LinkedIn. So what you wanna do is get that middle where the circles intersect, where you're building up your personal brand while building up the company, and they feed off each other. So there's not really a strategy, and it's kind of a learned specialty. And then 3, I don't think people realize what a goldmine it can be building an online brand on LinkedIn, and it's not that hard. The top 4% of LinkedIn creators only post once a week. So all you have to do to be in that category is just post once a week. And so I was like, okay, more people have to do this. How do we get them to do it? And the reality is, it's very hard to change people's behaviors. So you'll have people say, I know I have to do more on LinkedIn. Um, so what I do is essentially I decided, let me just take over their LinkedIn for them and write on their behalf. And that was, I sold my interest in the last company, and here I am.
Here you are. I love that this company has been founded by your own personal experience, right? You grew such a successful company, and in part, you did it by using the LinkedIn platform for what it's meant to be used to connect to people, to tell your story, to be a professional. It's the way companies should be started.
Well, yeah, you got to walk the walk. Um, I've been an executive, so I understand executive communications. I've also been a salesperson, so I understand the need to get new business. Um, I also went through a very personal health journey. After in 2023, I was diagnosed with brain cancer, a very rare form of it, and I kind of detailed, that journey on numerous social media platforms, and it struck a chord. And, people were like, "Oh, you're so brave for talking about it." I was like, "One, I don't think you realize how boring chemotherapy is. Like, like, there was nothing else to do but kind of write a little bit." Um,
I only laugh because Well, it is pretty funny because you think of it, it's pretty terrible to have to go through chemotherapy, but your point of view is like, "No, I was bored."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I just wrote and, it struck a chord with a lot of people and, there's a good quote about, a true friend loves helping a friend in need, you know? And what I realized when I was talking about it, it was giving people a reason to like root for me. And being able to root for someone not only made it was heartwarming for me and it helped with, my battle, but also it was good for them. Like it's good to have something to root for and hope for and, follow along. Um, so that's kind of also what I realized uh during that time.
So I see, a lot of I'm on a LinkedIn myself, and I see a lot of our clients on LinkedIn, and clients and I'm talking about clients, I mean, like, the institutions, the college institutions, but the marketing directors and the college presidents, and I would say 3/4 of them are doing exactly what you described. They are posting things like, "Look at our groundbreaking," and then resharing it, or, "Our college president spoke at this event," and then resharing it. When you talk about building a personal brand on LinkedIn, is that what you're talking about, or do you think it needs to go deeper? What kind of advice to actually build a brand would you give to college administrators?
Yeah. So first off, you get 8 times more engagement from a personal post than from a company post on LinkedIn. So the whole strategy I find is wrong, right? A lot of people think, how do we get our LinkedIn page up and running? And that makes sense for other social media platforms, but not for LinkedIn. Like if I was running a LinkedIn strategy for a higher ed institution, it would all be about how do we get the president posting? How do we get the VPs posting? How do we get the professors posting? Right? How do you become familiar with the business community? So if you do post on LinkedIn, and not everyone does, right? So I think some of your clients are a little more progressive than what I've seen is that they're actually on LinkedIn giving updates, which is good because it shows visibility. But that's only a small part of what you can do on LinkedIn. So I call that the update track, which is had a good time at this networking event, had a good time at the ground opening. And maybe you're doing those posts once every 2 months when there's an event happening. But to really move the needle on LinkedIn, you wanna talk about, well, why are you in higher ed? What does running a college mean to you? How have you changed students' lives? Um, and there's all these stories. What's a fond memory you have of someone coming into your college and leaving a different person? Like there's so many stories. And what that does, it makes you interesting and it makes your college interesting and it makes you top of mind to the business community. And I think I think that's severely lacking in this industry because community colleges are so important. They do great work, but they don't do a good job of of telling a story of the good work they do. They tell that story offline where, meeting with legislators and, their once a year galas, but they need to be telling the story to the business community like once or twice a week about all the great work they're doing, all the importance they're doing. So if any legislators think of cutting their budget, they're going to have the business community say, no, 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 we need them. Um, there's also a big opportunity. Sorry if I'm rambling, but there's also an opportunity for development on LinkedIn, which I see. Development is typically it's sales. It's why are we raising money for the college? And they have their once a year galas. They raise money. and they try to network, but they should be actively using LinkedIn to prospect, to talk about what their money, if donated, can do for students. And LinkedIn is a business platform. So I think it's a sidebar, but every foundation and development director, should be also on LinkedIn to talk to the business community about why they should be donating and partnering and things like that.
These are such great ideas. I've been on LinkedIn myself for years, and I had something interesting happen maybe like a year ago. I think this I just want to tell the story really quick because it shocked me, but it absolutely showcases what you're saying about, like, telling a story. I had volunteered for, an event at my son's school, and at the event, the woman in charge had wanted us to, like, hand out these giveaways, like, put them on tables, and she said, "Don't tell marketing, but I did a different color on the water bottles because I don't like our school colors." And I'm like running a branding firm, and I'm like, I've heard that so many times. So I, like, went back to my desk and I wrote it up. I'm like, "Don't tell I heard today, don't tell marketing. We didn't use the school colors because I didn't like them." And I, like, wrote this little rant. It went, like, in crazy. Like, within, like, a day, I had, like, 1,600 likes, like, 800 shares, all of these comments, and I've been posting on LinkedIn forever, and, something completely random that was just a story just, boom, took hold. And somebody on my team said, "Cheryl, you should turn that into a series about, like, like how marketing always gets, like, the short end of the stick, or, like, people go around us." And so I have, like, over the last year now, whenever something happens that I get irritated with, I'll turn it into this Don't Tell Marketing series, and I've gotten so much engagement. I've gotten people writing, asking for advice, connecting, asking for proposals, all off of sharing one story. So, and it was shocking when it happened because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going viral." I'm going viral for a rant about colors,
No, it's
but
great.
it struck a nerve. Yeah.
And I'd say that story seems like it went viral because it's authentic and it's relatable. And that's the key is when you talk like a higher ed institution, it doesn't resonate as much when, I say LinkedIn is like a professional diary, not a personal diary, but a professional diary where you're letting people into how you think and how you react and how you observe and things that you've noticed. And that's authentic. And that's what resonates.
So much more than, like, look at our groundbreaking. Right? It's,
No, if I were if
maybe telling the story behind that.
exactly. If I were to say, "Here's a ground peg," I'd say, "Okay, why did you build this building? How long did it take? Who is it gonna serve? What's the vision?" Not, "I had a great time. We're about this groundbreaking, excited for 2026. Thank you for coming," tagging people.
Right.
I'd say lame. Like,
Yeah,
it
boring. It's boring.
doesn't do it justice.
So we're talking a little bit about authenticity, and what I wanna do next is I wanna talk about the role of AI in some of this. But before we do that, let's take a little break, and let's hear a little bit from our sponsor.
How do higher education decision makers find the right solution when technology evolves at light speed? Well, we usually start with our network. EdTech Connect is the network that's democratizing the higher ed technology conversation. EdTech Connect is free, so anyone with a .edu email address can sign up and list the software and services they use in their role at their school. Once you're in, you can find out what solutions similar schools are doing all over the country. Whether you're looking to find the hot new AI tool, or maybe learn options you have to upgrade your campus search engine, or even get to your short list of marketing solution vendors, EdTech Connect is the place to go. So visit edtechconnect.com and set up your free profile to get a pulse for what's happening with higher ed technology today.
All right, we're back. So before the break, we were talking about authenticity on LinkedIn and storytelling. And I want to jump to AI. and see what are your thoughts of using or experimenting with AI tools for content creation? And how do you make sure that you still keep that authenticity?
Well, here's what I say. I think the first thing to do is publish like 5 or 10 posts of your own writing. And some are gonna hit, some are gonna miss, but you just gotta click publish. You just gotta get started. What you can then do is I recommend using Claude. Claude is the best for writing that I found. And then you submit your last 10 posts into Claude, and then it gets a feel for you. And then what you can do is that you're still writing the post, but you're sending it to Claude and it's giving suggestions or different phrases. And then, maybe you can come up with something that it's like a partner for you. So that's how you can use it as like a partner, but not as it's not going to come up with posts for you, you know? Um, so that's what I recommend. But again, it requires commitment. It requires, a lot, requires focus and intent to be consistent. And I often find that's the hardest part for people is that it's kind of like working out. It's kind of like a New Year's resolution. Like, yep, I'm going to post on LinkedIn by March. It's like, it's been 3 weeks. Crap. I got to think of something and life gets in the way.
Yeah.
Um, so I also tell people if Claude recommends something and you have an idea, always go with your idea. Like always err on the side of, "No, I like what I said better."
So, the work that you do in helping colleges and executives and leaders build their presence on LinkedIn, do you lean on AI or are you working with them to help pull out stories? How exactly are you intersecting with leaders?
Yeah, I really I I've had thousands of cup of coffee meetings in my career, as I'm sure you have. And I find once you get someone to, like, have a lunch with you or have a drink, have a cup of coffee, I would find I'd be like, "Wow, this person's awesome," you know? But I didn't if I didn't get the meeting with that person, I would never know they're awesome. And so that's what I look at LinkedIn as. It's like having a cup of coffee meeting with thousands of your connections. And so that's the approach I take for my clients is I interview them for like an hour, hour and a half, where it's like, imagine I'm a potential donor. Imagine I'm a potential grad student. Imagine I'm a potential, um, community stakeholder. Like, why should I get involved with your college? And you talk about it, but you don't just talk about the college. You talk about your values, the stories you've had with the college, why it means a lot to you, you know, mentors who've worked there and have helped you along the way, colleagues you work with. So you're telling a story about why it's worth investing mind space and money into.
Right, right.
And once you do
I
that,
love this idea. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just
mm,
love the idea of having a coffee. Like, I'm gonna think about that when I'm writing my LinkedIn post myself. Like, this is like if I wanted someone to have coffee with me and talk business, what are some of the things I'd wanna talk about? That's such a great way to think about how to get yourself posting.
yeah. Well, I
Mhm.
also say too, like any story you find yourself repeating when you're talking to clients or teammates or whoever, that's usually a good LinkedIn post.
Mhm.
And you, I've gone to that, but I'm kind of annoyed now where like, I'll talk to someone and be like, you should write about that. And I'll say it like 2 or 3 times to them over the course of a meeting, but it's true. Um, and odds are if I enjoyed that story or I found value in it, a lot of other people would as well. So I get most of my, um, motivation or ideas which comes from just talking to people and being active. And, a lot of people are like, how do I jumpstart my LinkedIn? I've been trying, it's not really catching on. Well, I'm like, you got to get out from behind your computer. You got to talk to people. LinkedIn is not a sole channel for you. Like LinkedIn is a force multiplier. So it takes your offline relationship currency and your reputation and the network you built and it multiplies it online. But if you're not doing stuff, you're not going to have a good LinkedIn presence.
Yeah, you're not gonna have anything to talk about.
Not going to have anything to talk about it. You're not going to have people who know you and want to hear what you're saying. Um, so, sometimes I'll have clients. I'll be like, "Look, I'm not a magician. Like, you have to do stuff."
That is great advice. Get out there in the world, have something to talk about. And our clients, community colleges, have so much to talk about. So much. And I think that the hard part for them is making this adjustment from speaking from this institutional perspective to speaking from a personal brand voice. And I think the marketing directors that listen to the show, you are like, they're perfectly primed to be that a brand voice for their college. I mean, you don't have to just post on the happenings, but you can post on your reaction to them, your thoughts about them, your feelings about them, how they inspire you, even struggles. I mean, I find some of my posts that get a lot of tractions are things that I'm struggling with, and people are out there want to help. They want to give guidance.
Totally. Totally. The my company is called, uh, uh, DABS. It's like the dab, so the logo. Driven Authentic Branding Solutions. So you gotta be authentic, and authenticity is what and, that doesn't necessarily mean being vulnerable. It just means being authentic. Um, so sharing what's happening. Community colleges have a huge opportunity on LinkedIn. I see uh in their community where like there's a professional worker who's on LinkedIn who wants to go back to school. And right now I get all these DMs, these like messages. I don't know if you got them, where it's like, come join our executive program. And I'm like, you're doing it the wrong way. What really wins is organic content that is promoting why the school can boost your career and examples of other people that have been in your programs, have learned new skills, and have doubled their income. Like there's stories out there like that. And LinkedIn is very underutilized where it could be for that kind of thing.
And so I am in such agreement with you about this because I've been on this soapbox myself that community colleges, higher education have always presented themselves as a service. You're going to come to us, you're going to get a great education. They're not a service anymore. This is a product. People are buying an outcome. They are buying a better career, they are buying more money, they're buying freedom, whatever it is that they're after, that's what they're buying. They're not buying your service of education. And this is such a great way to show the outcomes that they're investing in, to show that product and other people who have realized it, which builds up credibility. So, yeah, think outside just yourself and your own professional experience on LinkedIn and share these stories, these success stories, these outcomes.
And it's gotta start at the top. Like the presidents have to be the ones, and if you're a marketing director, like you got to convince your president they've got to be on LinkedIn, and they've got to be on LinkedIn the right way, and they've got to really be intentional about twice a week talking about all the good work the school's doing. Because once the president sees the value, he's going to push it down to the rest of the organization. Um, and community colleges are big, right? They might have like 100 employees or so. Imagine if 100 employees just talked about why they think the work they do is important and they all posted it. It's like 100,000 views on LinkedIn going to the local community that they're serving. Like that's a real value. You'd have to pay like, I don't know, $50,000 for that kind of exposure from other channels. And you can do it, you know, it's free essentially. Um, so yeah, if you're, it's, I say it starts at the top, but it's also an opportunity to be scrappy. Colleges don't have as much money as they used to, which is a chicken and egg thing. Like funding is decreasing, but they're also not talking about their value as much as they should be, and they're helping even more people than ever. So it's a it's a bad cycle to be in.
Well, before we wrap up, I'm gonna say, I bet everybody out there is nodding with you right now. I'm like, "Greg, 100%, you're right, you're right, you're right, but we don't have the time." That's I can already hear it. So what's your advice? How do you find time to do this?
Well, that's where like, okay, you could hire someone like me. I don't want to, but that's the whole reason I started the company is because I write for people who don't have the time to write for themselves. But if I were a marketing director and just thought like, how do I get my staff to start writing? I would just invest in like a workshop to get their employees some ideas to start posting. And I would try to gamify it where, hey, whoever posts the most wins X. And it's got to be something intentional for the marketing director to try to get in their organization. Um, because without it being intentional, it's hard to follow through. Um, but candidly, what I found is like w- once you get someone to start posting on their behalf and they start to see the value, it's kind of like riding a bicycle. Like once they're taught and they see it, then they could ride themselves. But they need that ability of like, hey, here's 6 months of posting. Oh, I'm seeing the value. I think I get it. Let me start doing it myself. And that's how it typically catches on.
Well, that's great. I say from my own experience, because like you, Greg, I can't underestimate how important LinkedIn is to my own business, and clearly it was such a help for you at Carvertise, and now you have a whole company around it. It does take a little time, but once you get going, it's not that much of a time commitment, and it does make a huge impact. So if people wanna connect with you, I'm guessing they can find you on LinkedIn.
Greg Starr on LinkedIn.
Well, great. Well, I am gonna have to make sure that I'm connected with you. I think we are. I know that we've connected in NCMPR, so I bet we're connected on LinkedIn, and I'd highly suggest, everybody else listening, check you out, follow you for more tips, and yeah, get going on that LinkedIn strategy. It can make a huge difference. So thank you so much, Greg. It's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast.